Every island the Straw Hats get to has some kind of event early on to start the arc off with a bang and further drive their motivations. Whole Cake Island had Sanji trying to cast away Luffy. In Wano, Luffy is captured by Kaido, and in Egghead, York turns traitor against the rest of the Vegapunk satellites, and Elbaf's arc is no different. One Piece chapter 1130 has finally dropped, and there is a lot to talk about. We've finally touched land on the Island of the Giants with a grand reveal of the entire island. And one of the biggest things that we learn is that Loki, Prince of the Giants, has slain his father in order to obtain a legendary devil fruit. Wow. I did not expect to get regicide in the first chapter of the new arc. However, I believe that we can find out the reason for this with the information we already have. But let's start with the first piece of news. The World Economy newspaper is making its round, and just as Big News said he would, the story is covering the Straw Hats regaling about how Luffy has killed Vegapunk, destroyed the island of the future, and made his escape with the Giant Warrior's help. Now, I wasn't going to put it past Big Morgans to, spice it up a little bit, but I did hope he would have at least revealed something about the world governments, even if it was just something alluding to the Marines and CP0's involvement in the destruction of the island. Though I do get the reasoning for saying anything about the Gorosei, it does make sense he doesn't want to paint too big a picture, especially since Morgan likely knows about Eam with Wapple being there. That's quite the information dump. My guess is there's also going to be some amount of bounty increase for the Straw Hats very soon with the Egghead incident under wraps and being shared with the rest of the world. Because we get Dory and Brogy bounties. Both have 1.8 billion berries for their bounty, which is an incredible leap from the 100 million berry bounty that they had during Little Garden. Higher than anybody in the Straw Hats except for Luffy, of course. And I believe if we get new bounties for the Straw Hats, we're going to see Zoro, Sanji, and Jinbei over 1.5 billion, Robin go over 1 billion, Usopp will likely reach 750 million, Nami, Frankie, and Brook will likely go over that 500 million mark, and maybe Chopper will reach 1 million. I mean, he didn't do much last arc to begin with, so Oda could really keep the pet gag going that he's got and just raise it to like 10k. But I mean, at this point, I would like to see Chopper with like a real bounty. I'm looking forward to seeing just how high Egghead brought our crew, and I hope and pray that we get that reveal soon. And we even get a little Easter egg from Vivi as a message to the crew that she's with Big News. In the picture with Luffy using Gear 5, he's got a little X on his arm, and that's calling back to Vivi's moment with the crew as they're leaving Alabasta with the X all on their left arm as a symbol of their friendship. But of course, none of the crew members present were there at the time that happened, so it kind of just went over everybody's heads. I guess I can see why Oda did the little split up the crew trope now in hindsight. So hopefully Luffy and the others see it, because I doubt the members of the crew who did see it are gonna think to bring it up. For some reason, there's just very little communication between the crew members for seemingly very important information all throughout the story. Now, going back to the event to truly kick off the adventure of the new island, while Dory and Brogy were gone from the island doing their duels, we learn that Prince Loki has killed his father in order to obtain a legendary devil fruit, one whose detail we don't know yet. But with this arc being closely tied to Norse mythology, I'm willing to bet that this is a mythical Zoan fruit model Fenrir. So in Norse mythos, Loki's got multiple children with the Jotun Angerboda, including the wolf Fenrir, the world serpent Jormungandr, and Hel, the goddess of death. I believe that the devil fruit will likely be a Fenrir model, mostly because I'm still of the line that Oda could use this opportunity to introduce some kind of Emperor of the Sea Kings outside the coast of Elbaf, where it just dwarfs anything that we've seen before in the series. Just think back to when the Straw Hats found themselves near the Calm Belt in the pre-time skip, and they were lifted up on the snout of one of them, and you could just see their tiny little ship on the nose of one of the Sea Kings. Now, imagine the giant ship, which is several times larger than the Thousand Sunny, being dwarfed to that same extent by this creature. But I digress. The next thing we need to figure out is, why did Loki kill his dad to get the fruit? And just as we learn that he did, Luffy himself goes to meet the prince, and this man is massive. He's huge. I know we've seen giants in the story from the Marines. We've seen Dorian Brogy. We've seen the giant warriors on Egghead. But to see Luffy walking up to Loki and see how small he is compared to just his boot right next to Luffy it gives aura. It gives some saucy aura. And it's here we find him tied to a tree that is likely sea stone chains because he's eaten that devil fruit, which is very reminiscent of 3 different instances in Norse mythology. The first is how the gods of Asgard imprisoned Fenrir, using dwarven chains created from the sound of a cat's footsteps, a woman's beard, and a fish's breath. Don't ask me how that works. I don't know. The second being that Odin is killed by Fenrir during Ragnarok after breaking free of his chains and being swallowed whole. And lastly, being that Odin imprisoned the wisest god of the Aesir tribe, Mimir, to a tree in Midgar's highest peak. Now, if we meld those 3 events together, we kind of get what we're getting right now. For some reason, Loki fought and killed his father to stop him from doing something that must have involved the devil fruit. And as punishment for doing so and consuming the devil fruit, he's tied up with sea stone chains to this tree. And it had to be something dire enough for Loki to step in. To be given the moniker The Shame of Elbaf and the Accursed Prince are some pretty heavy titles given for the Prince of Elbaf, especially when he was introduced into the story as being described as deeply respected within the kingdom of giants. That is a wild departure from where he's at now. So there has to be something that's caused this. And I think this is a little bit of speculation right now, but it could have been his father wanted to involve the nation more closely with the world government on a deeper level. We know there are giants enlisted in the Navy, but the country as a whole doesn't seem to be part of the world government. We don't see them at the Reverie, and Loki could have been totally against this with their strong beliefs in the sun god Nika. Of course, this is giving Loki the extreme benefit of the doubt, giving his initial introduction and where he was introduced in the story originally as being deeply respected, because there could be some malicious intent in his actions, purely based off the vibe he gives Luffy, as well as him telling Luffy directly that he is the sun god who will bring the end of the world. Bring an end to the world of corruption or an end to the world of peace. One of those we'll find out very soon. I'm hoping it's an end to the world of corruption, and if he is a real villain, that's going to be a hell of a fight we're going to look forward to, and that's where we see it. An amazing double spread of the entire island in all its glory. I've waited years for this, and the most interesting part of the landscape is seeing the giant tree in the center of the island. At the midsection of the tree, we get a huge layer of branches, with the country's castle and a village on top of the branches, which is very reminiscent of Skypiea to me, and how they had towns and buildings on top of the clouds. And there's also a gigantic sword stabbed in the ground with a blade and hilt reaching almost all the way up to the top of the tree. A blade of insane size that looks like it would have been too big for even ancient giants like Ors and Ors Jr. There has to be some kind of ancient giant species that died out, possibly predating even the Void Century that the other countries fought against, or some deity of the island. It might even be just some kind of religious symbol put up by the giants of Elbaf. I've been dreaming of the day we finally reach this arc, ever since the Little Garden and how Oda has set up the Viking Norse mythology themes of the warrior tribe of Elbaf. It's captivated me to learn more and more about this arc, especially given how much I read into Norse mythology and have started studying the runes of the Elder Furthark. And for all the guesses we've tried to make for character features in the story, be it the God's Knights, Eam, Kaido when he was first talked about by Garp, I'm never trusting silhouettes again in One Piece, especially after seeing how Prince Loki was introduced versus how we see him now. But I've got to know what your thoughts are for Loki. Do you guys see him as a potential villain in the story? Or could he be an anti-hero that fights alongside the Straw Hats against whatever villain that comes to the island, be it the God's Knights or somebody else? Leave a comment down below, and if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe for more One Piece content as well as reactions. Links are down below to the official Discord where we can talk about things there. Follow me on Twitter at Rathofreptar, And as for that, I hope you all have a wonderful night.